All right, you bastards. Let's cut the crap and dive into some seriously weird shit. The Holy See, yeah, we're talking about the big kahuna, the puppet master of the Catholic Church. Not just that tiny Vatican City amusement park.
It's a goddamn trip.
Hmm.
Think of a corporation older than your grandma's dusty Bible with over 1 billion shareholders and a CEO who claims he chats with a sky daddy.
We've got a stack of sources here, from Wikipedia to some deep dive articles. And we're going to unpack how this Holy See thing even exists, how it holds on to power, and why the fuck you should give a damn.
Let's face it, the Holy See is like that creepy uncle at a family reunion. You know, he's got some fucked up stories. But you can't help but listen.
So first off, let's get our definition straight. Wikipedia tells us the Holy See is the central governing body of the Catholic Church, a sovereign entity under international law. What the fuck does that even mean?
It's like the Holy See is wearing two hats. 1 minute, they're running the church, issuing decrees and excommunicating heretics. The next, they're hobnobbing with world leaders and signing treaties. It's a mindfuck, really.
So the Pope is basically a goddamn emperor, ruling over his own little country. Explains why those Swiss guards strut around in their clown suits with halberds.
Hold your horses. He's the head honcho of Vatican City, sure. But his real power comes from being the Pope, the Bishop of Rome. The Catholics believe he's the successor to St. Peter, Jesus' right-hand man.
So this whole Holy See bullshit goes back to the 1st century. Seriously, that's older than my hangover.
Older than dirt. They say it was founded by Saints Peter and Paul themselves. Imagine those two running the show back then. Talk about a power trip.
All right, so how the hell did this Holy See thing get so much power? Did they bribe everyone with communion wafers?
It's a long and messy story, full of backstabbing power grabs and enough bullshit to make a politician blush. Way back in the 4th century, the Roman Emperor Constantine recognized the Catholic Church, and it eventually became the state religion. Centuries later, kings started kissing the Pope's ass and donating land, which is how the Papal States were born.
So they basically built their own little empire. Clever bastards.
You could say that they had their own territory, their own army, the whole 9 yards. Of course, they pissed off a lot of people along the way, which tends to happen when you claim to speak for God.
Yeah, no shit. A bunch of guys in robes running a country. Sounds like a recipe for a fucking disaster.
Surprisingly, it lasted for a while. Until the 19th century, that is, when Italy decided they'd had enough of the Pope's shit and took over Rome. They basically told the Pope to go fuck himself.
So that's when the Pope became that prisoner in the Vatican we always hear about. Talk about a first world problem.
Exactly. He was basically stuck inside the Vatican for almost 60 years, refusing to recognize the Italian government. Can you imagine the drama?
Those must have been some awkward goddamn dinner parties.
Yes.
So how the hell did they fix that mess? Did someone finally slip the Pope a decent bottle of wine?
They eventually signed the Lateran Treaty in 1929, which created Vatican City as an independent state that gave the Pope back his sovereignty and settled the whole Roman question.
So problem solved, right? Except for the whole billion Catholics looking to the Pope for guidance thing. That's a lot of pressure, man.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's where the Roman Curia comes in, the Pope's cabinet. All those departments that keep the Catholic Church running like a well-oiled, albeit ancient machine. Think of it like a massive bureaucracy with cardinals and bishops instead of your typical government goons.
Sounds like a fucking nightmare. Paperwork meetings, more paperwork. And all while wearing a dress. No thanks.
Hey, someone's got to do it. And let me tell you, it's not all boring stuff. Some of these departments handle some seriously heavy shit. Take the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, for example. Basically, the church's thought police, making sure everyone stays in line theologically speaking.
So like the Catholic Church's version of the KGB. Damn, that's some scary shit.
Yeah.
I bet those guys know where all the bodies are buried. Literally.
Let's just say they've had their fair share of controversies over the years. But hey, every organization needs someone to keep the sheep in line, right?
Fair enough. So we got the Pope, his little empire, his army of bureaucrats. What else makes the Holy See so damn unique? Aside from the whole God thing, obviously.
Well, remember, we said it's a sovereign entity under international law. That means they have diplomatic relations with a shitload of countries. It's like they're playing a game of Risk. But instead of armies, they're using rosaries.
Wait, seriously? They send ambassadors and shit? What kind of cocktail parties do they throw? Wine and wafers, I'm picturing some seriously awkward small talk.
They actually have a pretty impressive diplomatic network, maintaining relations with over 180 countries and holding memberships in a bunch of international organizations. It's like they're the ultimate social climbers. But instead of climbing the social ladder, they're aiming for heaven.
So they're players on the world stage. But they don't have an army anymore, right? Just those Swiss dudes with the fancy outfits. I wouldn't want to depend on them for protection if shit hit the fan.
You're right, the Swiss Guard is more for show these days. They're like the Vatican's version of a boy band. All looks and no real substance. But the Holy See doesn't need a traditional military. Their power comes from something else. Soft power.
Soft power? What the fuck is that? Sounds like some hippie bullshit.
Mm.
Are they going to hug the world into submission?
It basically means they influence the world through their moral authority and their massive network of connections. Think of it like this. They're not dropping bombs or invading countries, but they're whispering in the ears of those who do. They're master manipulators playing the long game.
Okay, so they're like the world's conscience. But seriously, how much sway can a bunch of priests have in today's world? It's not like anyone listens to their rules anymore, especially when it comes to sex.
Don't underestimate them. The Pope is a global figurehead, and his words carry weight, especially among the world's 1.3 billion Catholics. Plus, let's not forget the Catholic Church runs a shit ton of schools, hospitals, and charities all over the world. That gives them a huge amount of influence at the grassroots level. They're like a goddamn octopus with tentacles reaching into every corner of the globe.
But I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. This Holy See thing is a lot more than just a bunch of guys in robes chanting in Latin. They're a serious geopolitical force to be reckoned with, even if they are a bit creepy and contradictory.
You got that right. And we haven't even touched on the financial side of things. Buckle up, because that's where things get really juicy. We're talking about a level of wealth and financial fuckery that would make even a Wall Street banker blush.
Hold on. You're telling me there's more? Shit, I need a drink. We'll be back soon to delve into the Holy See's finances. Don't touch that dial, motherfuckers. You don't want to miss this.
All right, so last time we talked about how the Holy See is this ancient institution with serious global clout, pulling strings and whispering in the ears of world leaders.
Yeah, it's not just about robes and chanting. These fuckers are playing the long game, using their soft power to get what they want. But let's talk about their cash flow. How loaded are these guys? Are we talking Scrooge McDuck levels of wealth here?
Well, they don't exactly publish their bank statements, but let's just say they're not hurting for cash. They own a shit ton of property, both in Rome and around the world. Plus, they rake in donations from millions of Catholics who are probably feeling guilty about something.
Wait, so that collection plate at church is going straight to the Vatican? Damn, those guilt trips really pay off. I knew those priests were good at squeezing money out of people.
Not all of it, but a good chunk goes towards supporting the church's operations, including the Holy See. And then there's the Vatican Bank, officially known as the Institute for the Works of Religion. That's where things get a little shady, even by Catholic standards.
Ooh, shady. Now we're talking, what's the dirt on this Vatican Bank? Are we talking money laundering, secret Swiss accounts, that kind of thing? Give us the juicy details.
Well, let's just say they haven't always been saints when it comes to their finances. They've been involved in some pretty messed up scandals over the years. Money laundering, shady investments, you name it. There was even a time when they were accused of helping the Nazis move money around during World War II.
Oh, holy shit. So these guys are like the Catholic version of the mafia? I always knew there was more to this whole Holy See thing than met the eye. But like a goddamn crime syndicate disguised as a church.
Hold on, let's not get carried away. They've supposedly cleaned up their act in recent years, or at least they're trying to. But yeah, their financial history is definitely something they'd rather not talk about. It's like a bad confession that just won't go away.
I bet. So what's the deal with all this money? What do they spend it on besides fancy robes and golden chalices? Do they have a secret vault filled with priceless artifacts and shit?
A lot of it goes towards running the church itself. You know, salaries for priests and nuns, maintaining those massive churches, funding charities, and keeping the lights on at the Vatican. But they also use their money to influence global affairs, like some kind of holy venture capitalists.
Like how? Are they bribing world leaders with sacks of gold or something? I wouldn't put it past them.
No, they're more subtle than that. They're playing the soft power game, remember? They use their financial resources to support causes they believe in, fund research that aligns with their agenda, and lobby governments to pass laws that benefit them. They're pulling the strings from behind the scenes, like a bunch of goddamn puppet masters.
Right. So it's all about influence, not brute force. Clever bastards. It's like they've taken that whole turn the other cheek thing and turned it into a weapon.
They've had centuries to perfect their strategy. And let's be real, they're not the only ones playing this game. Every major power uses money to influence the world. It's just that the Holy See does it with a side of religious guilt.
True, that. It's kind of wild to think about these guys in their robes sitting in their fancy palaces, deciding the fate of the world with their wallets. It's like a scene out of a goddamn Dan Brown novel.
It's definitely a unique kind of power. And it's something that's been going on for a long, long time. They're like the original power brokers, except they trade in salvation instead of stocks.
So we've got this ancient institution with a shit ton of historical baggage, a shady bank account, and a knack for playing the global power game. What else is there to know about the Holy See? Is there anything they haven't dabbled in?
Well, we haven't even talked about their military history. I
Yeah.
mean, those Swiss dudes with the funny hats aren't exactly a fighting force anymore. They're like the world's most expensive security guards.
They're military. You mean those Swiss dudes with the Renaissance fair outfits? Please, they look like they'd be more comfortable holding a wine glass than a weapon.
True, the Swiss Guard is more for show these days. But back in the day, the Holy See had a real military force. They even had their own navy at one point. Can you imagine the Pope sailing into battle?
No shit. Popeye the Sailor Man leading the Catholic fleet into battle. Now that's an image I'd pay to see. Talk about a holy shit moment.
It wasn't quite like that. But they definitely weren't afraid to use force when they needed to. Remember, they were running a country for centuries. They had to defend their turf. Plus, they had all those crusades to launch. Those weren't exactly peaceful picnics.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So what happened to their mighty military? Did they sell all their weapons to buy more fancy art for the Vatican?
They basically lost their army when they lost the Papal States in the 19th century. And these days, they prefer to focus on soft power, peace diplomacy, all that bullshit. It's a lot cheaper than maintaining an army, and it lets them play the victim when things don't go their way.
So they're like the world's pacifist grandpa, except with a shitload of money and a history of kicking ass. This is getting weirder by the minute. It's like they want to have their cake and eat it too, preaching peace while holding on to their power.
The Holy See is full of contradictions. It's ancient and modern, spiritual and political, wealthy and charitable. It's a fascinating entity, to say the least. You never know what they're going to do next, which makes them all the more dangerous.
Yeah, fascinating and a little bit terrifying. Like, who the fuck are these guys to tell the world what to do? It's like they think they have a direct line to God and everyone else is just supposed to listen.
Well, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the fact is they have a massive platform and they're not afraid to use it. And with their money and influence, they can make a lot of noise.
All right. I think my brain is about to melt down from all this Holy See stuff. We've covered their history, their finances, their military, their global power plays. Is there anything else these guys have their fingers in? So we've spent the last two segments diving into this whole Holy See thing. And my brain is officially fried. It's like trying to untangle a goddamn spaghetti monster made of ancient laws, shady finances, and global power plays. We've talked about their crazy history, their fucked up bank, and their talent for manipulating world leaders. But it still feels like we're just scratching the surface. Like there's a whole other level of fucked upness we haven't even touched yet.
You're not wrong. The Holy See is like a goddamn iceberg. You see the tip, all pious and righteous, but underneath it's a massive, shadowy beast pulling strings and making deals in the dark.
So it's not just about preaching to the choir and telling people what to do in the bedroom. They're actually out there, engaging with the rest of the world, trying to shape global policy and shit.
Oh, absolutely. The Holy See has a permanent observer status at the United Nations. And they're balls deep in all sorts of international organizations. They even have their fingers in organizations like the International Atomic Energy Agency and the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. It's like they're trying to play both sides of the fence, preaching peace while making sure they have a say in how the world blows itself up.
Wait, seriously, the Pope is weighing in on nuclear weapons and chemical warfare. That's a far cry from blessing babies and forgiving sins. It's like finding out your grandma's a goddamn arms dealer.
The Holy See sees itself as a moral authority on the world stage, advocating for peace, justice, and human dignity. Or at least that's what they want you to believe. They use their platform to speak out against war, poverty, and oppression. But let's not forget they have a long history of being on the wrong side of those issues themselves.
So they're like the world's conscience, but with a diplomatic passport and a shady past. I gotta admit, it's a pretty fucking slick operation. They've managed to turn guilt and forgiveness into a global power play.
It's definitely a unique position. They can access world leaders, mediate conflicts, raise awareness about important issues, all while keeping their hands relatively clean. It's like they've figured out how to be both the puppet master and the saint all at the same time.
But let's be real, they're not always on the right side of history, are they? I mean, the Catholic Church has a pretty fucked up track record when it comes to things like human rights and social justice. Like they're stuck in the dark ages sometimes,
Yeah,
still trying to control people's lives and beliefs.
no argument there. They've been slow as fuck to evolve on issues like women's rights, LGBTQ plus rights. And let's not even get started on the sexual abuse scandals that have rocked the church to its core. They've got a lot of work to do to earn back people's trust, but I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for them to change their ways.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like they're trying to drive a goddamn horse-drawn carriage in the age of self-driving cars. But hey,
Yeah.
maybe all this diplomacy and international engagement is a sign that they're trying to modernize, to become a more progressive force in the world. Or maybe it's just another way for them to hold on to their power and influence.
Time will tell, I guess.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure. The Holy See isn't going anywhere anytime soon. They've been around for 2,000 years, they've weathered countless storms, and they're masters at adapting to survive. They're like a goddamn cockroach. You can try to squash them, but they'll just keep coming back.
2,000 years. That's some serious staying power. It's like
Yeah.
they made a deal with the devil or something. So after all this deep diving, what's the takeaway? What should people remember about the Holy See?
First and foremost, remember that power comes in many forms. Money, influence, manipulation, and even faith. The Holy See may not have a military or a massive economy like some countries, but they wield a different kind of power. A power that's subtle, pervasive, and deeply ingrained in the fabric of our world. They're a force to be reckoned with, whether you believe in their bullshit or not.
It's like they figured out how to weaponize faith and turn it into a tool for control. And they've been doing it for centuries,
Yeah.
quietly shaping the world in their image.
Exactly, and it's a reminder that nothing is ever as simple as it seems. The Holy See is full of contradictions, complexities, and hidden agendas. It's an institution that's both ancient and modern, both spiritual and political, both benevolent and manipulative.
It's like they're trying to be everything to everyone, which,
Yeah.
let's be honest, is a pretty good strategy for maintaining power.
And finally, I think it's a reminder that we should always be critical thinkers, questioning authority, and digging deeper to understand the forces that shape our world. Don't take anything at face value, especially when it comes to institutions like the Holy See. Do your own research, question their motives, and don't be afraid to call bullshit when you see it.
Well said. All right, folks, that's our deep dive into the Holy See. We've covered a lot of ground, from ancient Rome to modern-day diplomacy, from shady finances to global power plays. Hopefully you learned something new, or at least had a few laughs at the expense of those robe-wearing bastards.
It's a wild ride, that's for sure, and it makes you wonder what they're not telling us.
Yeah, all those secret archives, all those whispers in the Vatican hallways. Who knows what kind of shit they're hiding? It's enough to make you paranoid, or at least a little bit curious.
That's the thing about the Holy See. They're a goddamn enigma wrapped in a mystery inside a robe. They're a constant reminder that power, faith, and manipulation are often intertwined, and that the world is a much stranger and more complex place than we often realize.
Well said. All right, folks, that's it for today. Go forth, spread the knowledge, question everything, and don't let those robe-wearing bastards get away with anything. Stay informed, stay skeptical, and stay tuned for our next deep dive into the weird and wonderful world we live in.